Hello and welcome to the Klassiki Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Goff. Klassiki is your one-stop shop for the wide world of cinema from Eastern Europe. Subscribers gain access to our library of classic and contemporary films, as well as access to director interviews, video introductions, program notes, and much more. You can sign up for a 7-day free trial at klassiki.online. Today, I'm speaking with Romanian filmmaker Radu Jude, one of the most distinctive and daring voices in contemporary European film. Over the last 15 years, Jude has carved out a niche both in Romanian cinema and in Eastern European film more broadly, across period dramas, documentaries, and satirical shorts. His most recent film is the gig economy and TikTok-inspired odyssey Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World, which has been making waves on both sides of the Atlantic since debuting at Locarno last year. The film follows a day in the life of an overworked production assistant named Angela, who is hurtling around Bucharest, making a dubious corporate safety video at the behest of her Western employers. As Angela drives around, Jude interweaves footage from a communist-era Romanian film, as well as the hilariously foul-mouthed TikTok rants of Angela's alter ego, Babica, a hilarious takedown of misogynistic online influencers like Andrew Tate. I spoke to Jude about the unexpected international appeal of the film and where it sits within his career more broadly. And if you enjoy this conversation, make sure to check out his brilliant 2018 satire, I Do Not Care If We Go Down in History as Barbarians, which is available to watch on Klassiki now. Radu, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
So this film, Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World, it seems to have caught the imagination of international audience in a whole new way compared to your previous films. I mean, what's it been like for you, first of all, the experience of traveling with the film, showing the film, seeing audience reactions?
Well, it's one of the great things I think in making films is that you never know how it's going to be received, and seeing that it was in many cases warmly received. Of course, it's something very, I don't know. It gives a lot of meaning for what you do. Despite the fact that I always think that I would really, like to imagine that I would try to do the same thing even if the films will not be successful. I mean, I always think, for instance, of Emily Dickinson, how she kept writing her great poems, although nobody paid attention to them, basically. And she's such a great poetess. Otherwise, I'm of course, well, if you want to answer honestly to that, I was very impressed by the fact that when I start making the film. And one of the things when making films which are, let's say, international, I mean, meaning by that art cinema functions internationally,
Sure, yeah.
is the fact that you don't know how the film will be considered by someone from so many other cultures. Because, of course, I work and live in Romania, so the film is connected very much with some issues which are local. And I'm interested to be as local as possible in a certain way, because I think one of the problems of cinema today, of art cinema today, is that it tries to be too much international, in such a way that, for instance, if I see a film from UK, I want to see something from UK, not to see a American film in UK. Or if I see a Polish film or a Japanese film, I want to see something truly Polish or Japanese, not a ersatz, not a fake thing. So I try to make things as local as possible. So you never know if this will translate well to other people. So I was very pleased by, but also somehow amazed when many people who wrote about the film, film critics, but also journalists, but also some regular viewers, so to speak, that wrote on social media, that felt in a way represented by the film's issues, by the film problems, by the film protagonists. and they could say, oh, it's from Romania, but it can be a story from UK or a story from United States or a story from Germany, etc.
Although you probably need to speak Romanian to keep up with Ilinca Manalake's crazy TikTok rants and raves, right? I mean, the level of kind of pure dirty poetry that she's speaking in those sequences is pretty amazing.
Yes, and that's her creation basically. It's Ilinka created this avatar 4 years ago in the lockdown, exactly 4 years ago. And I liked it because on one hand it has this deep critical element. In the same time it has a kind of playfulness of caricature. But what's more, and because the film is about the building and construction of images, I think the film manages somehow to have the freshness of the films created at the beginning of cinema. In a way, these TikTok filters, these things feel a little bit like Méliès or like the early, very, very, very early cinema, and I like that very much. I think it's a very cinematic device.
I wanted to ask you about that tension, if you like, between what you call the kind of local context that you make your films in, and then this more international world. Because I thought one thing that's really interesting about this film was how you bring what we would call Western Europe in inverted commas. I don't really like that term, but fine. How you bring that kind of Western European world into the Romanian setting, because Angela, the protagonist, and all of her colleagues, right? They're running around Bucharest in service of this foreign firm, this Austrian firm.
Mm-hmm.
So your films have always kind of considered closely Romania's position within these kind of broader historical currents and contexts. So why did you want to make that relationship between East and Western Europe so explicit this time around? Why did you bring that into the film itself?
Mm. Yes, it's a complex question. First of all, yeah, when I said I'm interested in local things, well, nowadays nothing is local anymore in a certain way.
Right,
You
yeah.
can live in Romania, or, like me. I mean, I'm a Romanian filmmaker, but I can be my interest, or I can read, I don't know, James Joyce, and I can watch a foreign film anytime, and I can have a discussion with you on Zoom, and this internet space is with no
Yeah.
borders. And in the same time, of course, all the money circulation and the goods circulation is more or less the same in certain ways. So it's more and more difficult to be only local nowadays. So yes, the film is local, but in the same tries to have this kind of clash between what's local and what is from other place or outside, or even from this virtual world, which is very well apted, I think, called the internet world. Then I think it's another thing that is very, it's crucial in the film, which is exactly what you say, the relation between people from Romania with Western Europe. And now I felt, I questioned myself if to make this film or not, because especially after Brexit, there's a lot of talk and more talk about where people say maybe we should become independent and get out of EU because EU has problems and we have problems because of EU, etc., etc., etc. So now my answer, because I'm despite all the problems, I still believe in the European project. I still believe in the importance of Romania being part of the EU. Is the fact that the criticism against EU are more from the extremists of all kinds, including the new fascist parties that we have and which are growing. So when I said to myself, if this film will be critical towards some aspect of the relation between Romania and Western Europe, would that mean that I'm like the fascists that want raw exit, as they call it, after modeling it after Brexit?
Is that's the name? Is it row exit?
Yeah, and my answer is that no. On the contrary, I think that cinema has to do with seeing, with watching, and with showing the things that don't work in order to make them work. So I think that the first ones who should critique, or who should have a critical stance towards anything, are the ones who believe in that thing. So I don't think we should let the criticism of EU problems, or of the problems between Romania and Western countries, we don't have to let these problems to the fascists. We have to take them from them. You see, that's my opinion. So this is the reason I made the film, in a way.
I love the fact that to kind of represent this Western European, this Austrian kind of capitalist overlord hanging over the film, that you cast Nina Hoss, because obviously then the kind of international cinephile audience immediately has this association with this kind of brand of Western European art house film, and then that kind of like becomes part of the game that you're playing with the character. I love that. I love the scene where she asks Angela to play her some Manele music. I love that. Just the image of Nina Hoss asking to hear some Manele on the radio. That's such a good image.
Yeah. Yes, Nina Hoss, of course, is not only a great actress, but she's like a ready-made in the film, in a way. I don't want this to sound insulting, but her image, because of the characters she used to play, especially in Christian Petzold's films, are somehow in that direction. So but I must say that it was, first of all, the idea of my producer, of Ada Solomon, that she suggested at some point, what if Nina Hoss could be, and in 1 second I saw exactly what you say, and I said yes. And then she was really, really kind to accept to be part in a film where she's not the lead. And she was extremely, I mean, I have only good words for her. She was extremely professional and very nice and very generous towards our film.
The last couple of features that you've done, or that have got a kind of lot of play abroad, have been set in the modern day. And there's always been this kind of streak running through your films, this attempt to, let's say, excavate these aspects of Romanian national history that people in Romania might not want to talk about. So, you had Afarim, which was about Roma slavery. You've had a couple of films about the kind of fascist and anti-Semitic sympathies in the 1930s. Uppercase Print, which was about the Ceausescu era. So in your mind, how do those kind of history lessons, if you like, relate to these films set in the present day? I mean, how do you see that relationship between telling national history in a new way and kind of like reframing the present?
I think there are more aspects that connect the films somehow. One, I think, is more obvious, and maybe the other less. The most obvious ones would be the fact that, let's say, the films that dealt with history, which I've made, were not historical films in themselves. They were always made for the relationship between the past and the present, in a way.
Right.
Trying to focus on things which are not finished, trying to focus on the consequences, or on the historical events that still have consequences, etc. So that's one thing. In a way, I always consider my films related with history contemporary films, even if as a genre some of them could be considered historical films. Then I think the second thing, I think that's more maybe more subtle, but also more important for me in a way, is the fact that dealing with history issues, and doing the research for them, and trying to find a form, because when we speak about history, we speak about traces of history. Actually, the past doesn't exist anymore, so you only have what's left. You have the traces, and and some of these traces are very few, and some of the traces are not, they don't speak to us directly. You have to interpret them. So to interpret them, you really have to be careful and to pay attention to these traces, etc. So doing so many years historical research in this way for the films made me, I think, I hope I'm not mistaken, made me a more keener observer of nowadays realities. Meaning by that that I'm somehow try to look at the world like it's already gone, like it's history already. You see, when people go
Hmm.
in history, in ancient ruins, they are very careful. They look and they are amazed by any small column or a stone or whatever, and they say how beautiful it is that you see a stone from 5,000 years ago, or etc., or a painting or whatever, or a sculpture, but you have them in front of you every day, but we just don't pay the same attention to them. Nobody looks at a car on the street like it's like they they see with the same intensity of attention like they watch a painting in the National Gallery, you know. Although they might be they could be viewed from a certain point of view as the same as relics of a past already. Yeah. So I try to see everything around as being worthy of interest. So this is why I think in a way my films are full of details of today, words, expressions, quotations, objects, because they are seen and staged as belonging already to history, I think.
Is that related to you to the way in which our consumption of images has changed? The way in which we consume images now in this much more ephemeral, much quicker, much less permanent way? I mean, I'm thinking of something like TikTok, right, for instance, but
Yeah,
one could talk
yeah.
about any kind of like online
Hmm.
image production consumption. Is that related to this question of history for you? The fact that nothing's kind of sticking in the present, and we're constantly sliding through this like endless series of images.
True. It's yes, I have the same attention to as I said before, to watch a TikTok video like watching a Lumiere movie. You know, it's the same. It has the same energy and the same importance in a way. I think that cinema nowadays, because of all this, and you can add now the streaming services, you can add of course television, which was always there. You can add now AI generated images or text or whatever, and social networks, etc. I really think cinema is in a deep crisis, but I really strongly believe that this crisis is good, because if an art doesn't have any crisis, I think nothing happens. And I think so. I don't share the pessimism of many filmmakers who say, "Oh, cinema is dead, cinema is gone, everything good was in the past." Well, on the contrary, I mean, of course, there are many things that I regret in the nowadays. Also, the consumption of images. You know, I remember when I was, especially since Romania was so isolated, when I was in the Cinematheque, when I was going to the cinema, the Romanian Cinematheque in the 90s. Sometimes I had to wait months for a bad black and white copy of a film I love to appear. And I was going to the Cinematheque and watching it with an intensity that's
Hmm.
that is unmatchable in the world of today. Now my hard drive is full of hundreds of films illegally downloaded from Karagarga or from other places. Sometimes I forget I have them in the computer, and I always have the desire to watch them. I say, oh, maybe later, maybe some other time. Then I watch 10 minutes, and I turn it off, and then I next day I watch 20 more minutes, and then I forget about it, etc., etc. So something definitely was lost, but there's no reason to cry about. It's gone. So I think that the only thing we should do is to take advantage, because there are also enormous advantages into that, take advantage and to try to be better, let's say, in our work than TikTok or than AI. And if we are not, well, we can just resign and that's it.
I mean, I'm glad you made that comparison there between TikTok and the Lumiere brothers, because it's something I've seen you bring up a number of times in interviews recently. Is
Mhm.
this idea that you don't want to distinguish anymore between different types of film or footage or image, how everything can be cinema. And I think it's,
Mhm.
I mean, at least since maybe The Dead Nation, you've really found a way to incorporate a variety of different media into your films. You know, you've had photography, written word,
Mhm.
old TV footage, a sex tape now in your new film. You've got TikTok.
Mhm.
I mean, where does that impulse come from exactly? Like, do you try and mash together these different kind of footage or media in a way that goes smoothly, or is the point rather to like make them confrontational and awkward and to kind of produce new tensions and conflicts as a way of kind of producing ideas?
Um, I don't think I'm that confrontational altogether, or not in the intention. It's not my intention into that. But I think that one of the things that I don't I go against is this hierarchical
Right.
perspective about everything, including about images. People who say an image mm, made by, I don't know, a photograph made by a great photographer is great, but a photograph made by someone on Instagram is not so, or footage from a surveillance camera is just trash, etc. And I think that, of course, from a certain point of view, is like that. And if I have at some time, if I need to make a hierarchy of or to recommend someone 10 movies or 100 or whatever, I will separate them. You have to.
Right.
Um, in the same time, I think there's another exercise which is fruitful, is to not hierarchize so much the things and to try to see into each of them more, or to see their how should I say, their potential or their beauty actually. Because and this is, I think, maybe an influence from one of my favorite artists of all times, who's John
Mm.
Cage. And John Cage used to make these compositions using noises, ugly sounds. And he always used to say that for him, the sounds from outside are as beautiful as music, and you don't need real music when you have these sounds. And his music was conceived as a training for our for ourselves to see that, to understand that, to hear that. And in a certain way, I think he's right, and I try to train myself into that. And by working, you really discover this. Because, for instance, before that, I was interested in TikTok or in this kind of images, but before working with these images, I didn't realize their beauty.
Mm.
There's a beauty in the texture, but because it's all around, you don't see it. It's like VHS tapes nowadays. When I was young, VHS, to shoot a film on VHS was considered the ugliest form of image you can have. And now, when people discover an old VHS tape shot 30 years ago or 40 years ago, all of a sudden they see a beautiful
Right.
texture. And they say, "Oh, this is a beautiful texture, VHS texture, but the iPhone texture is ugly." No, I think every texture, every image is beautiful, but you have to see this beauty of
It's
it.
like that Brian Eno quote where he says that whatever it is about a technology that makes it seem old fashioned and obsolete, one day that's going to be the thing that people decide is beautiful about
I
it.
think he's right. Yeah, and Susan Sontag said the same, or had a similar idea. She said there are no very old photographs which are ugly. All the old photographs that when we have photographs from 100 years ago or 150 years ago, all of them seem beautiful to us. or interesting. So yeah, of course, I think these ideas are also dangerous, because then you say, oh, if everything is equally beautiful or important, how can we make any selection? And I think we need to make a selection, but that's something else. That's another
I mean,
problem,
that's your job.
in a way, or your job more than mine. But there is something here. There is something. I mean, it's like like painting. I recognize I can speak about that using a personal example, because you need a training to recognize that. For many years, I hated. I remember when I was a kid, that because I don't come from an intellectual family, we only had two painting albums at
Mm.
home. One was Kandinsky, and I was opening it and seeing these triangles, etc. I always said, "What is this bullshit? This is not painting." And you need to train your eye in order to see it as painting, and as good painting. So I think this is true about the new technologies, or about AI images, or about, I really think they are so beautiful, these AI images, because of their defects.
Mm.
People say, "Oh, I saw this AI created movie," or I don't know, the examples in Sora by OpenAI, and they still they look awful. But I like exactly the
Everyone
faults
has
of
too
their
many fingers in those AI images. That's always the thing people say.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
have too many
it's
fingers.
yes, that's beautiful.
I mean, I guess it's not the point, right? Is that it's not the image, it's the purpose that it's used for. Because in this film, in your new film, right, you have two examples of digitally manipulated images. You've got these TikToks that Angela is recording, which are hilarious, and like you say, they're critical and they kind of deconstruct this
Mhm.
patriarchal world. And then in the kind of manipulation of this safety video that they're filming, you have the suggestion of like actually the danger of images escaping out of our control and being kind of manipulated for the benefit of kind of like malign forces. So it's not the image itself, it's not the fact that the image is manipulated or quote unquote real. It's like it's the purpose that it's put to.
Yes, yeah, of course. One of the things that I think of the world of today is that we learn in school, more or less. I don't know how to interpret text. We learn in school a little bit about music, etc., but maybe less about images,
Hmm.
because images seem so easy to grasp. Everybody can look at an image and say, "Oh, I got it in 1 second. I understand what it means." But actually, and especially nowadays, more and more, because of the digital world, because of AI, more and more we realize that actually we don't know what an image is, and how do we how can we understand it, and what's the potential of being manipulative.
Hmm.
That's one thing. And in the same time, I think, because of course you can be fooled by image, and by images, it's so easy to be fooled. And in the same time, the opposite is also problematic, to not have trust in any kind of
Right.
images. Imagine that whenever the first thing, but actually for me, the first thing when an image with something from um, somewhere appears, atrocity, let's say, I don't even give a name, it doesn't matter. The first question you ask is it true? Is it real? Does it represent a reality, or is it a fake image? This is the first. And people who believe in that, they say, "Oh yeah, it's true." And people who oppose, the first second they say, "This is fake. This is not this is not true, is AI, or is manipulated digitally, etc." And it's very hard to prove. And I think this is also this kind of reality. This is also what created, if you want, all these conspiracy theories, which are flourishing nowadays, because now it's true, it's so easy to manipulate through internet and through images that people lost the belief into them. So whenever something appears, it's much more easy to believe the conspiracy theory, like it was in the COVID for many people in my country, at least. If you show to someone people dying in hospitals with oxygen masks, they will say these are fake. So yeah, so yeah, I think I don't have answers to that. This is why I say I don't know how to answer. What I can say is that the first thing is to recognize we have a problem in dealing with images. We have a problem and we have to find a way, which I don't know which it is, to deal with this problem of watching the images, of understanding them, of analyzing them, of using them. No.
Well, from your own career, it would seem that you've made certain choices, right, in that regard. I mean, there was a period where you were making, we might say, kind of quite classically designed kind of period dramas like Aphorim or Scarred Hearts, right? Quite kind of classical production design and so on. And then in the last couple of films, like we've been talking about, right, you started to incorporate all kinds of different media, different footage. You've brought us up to the present day. You're shooting much more kind of rough and ready, almost kind of DIY kind of approach to filming. So you've made us some choices, even if you say you don't know how. You clearly kind of think that there's more potential in that direction.
Yes, you are right. I think that the creation of images or the production of images and the problem that of the image became a part in the discourse of the film, at least, if not its main topic sometimes. But I think this problem should be, I don't know how it is. It belongs to all filmmakers today. I think nobody knows. I think this is why so many of us feel lost, because you don't know what to do. The technological challenges are so many and so fast appearing and so complicated that if you're serious about that, and if you take your job seriously, you feel lost. So that's why I think so many are either regretting the good old days, although there was never good old days, or try to dismiss everything and say, "Oh, TikTok is just horrible." It's just. I even received somebody cursing me and after the film was screened in New York Film Festival and said, "Come on, this is not acceptable. TikTok images into a film. This is the worst shit I ever saw in my life. Where are we going?" So yeah. So I think it's. I can understand that this attitude comes from our anxiety because we don't understand the world of image anymore, and but as I said, I repeat myself. I'm sorry. I find that exhilarating in a certain way. Of course, I regret many things that I said, but I think we live now the most interesting times regarding cinema and regarding the images, and I don't even have this feeling that many people have, where they say, "Oh, the best films were made in the past, and nowadays we don't have this and we don't have that." It's true that in many ways we don't have. Um, the greatest filmmakers which are gone. Maybe we don't have that many today, but I think we have so many interesting things around that it's everything enthusiastical.
Well, it's nice to have a conversation about contemporary cinema that ends on a kind of optimistic note.
Yeah, well, it's pessimistic on one hand because I don't understand where things are going to go, but in the same time, I really think we should take we are forced to take advantage of that or disappear. So if cinema will disappear, I think it's because we were so stupid not to be able to be better than or to offer something that is better than the AI programs, than the networks, than TikTok. Although it's difficult. I mean, I have a TikTok account. I don't post because it means to work. But whenever, if I just scroll into it, I find things that are so extraordinary, and the combination between them, that no filmmaker can do that. Sorry.
Well, we look forward to watching you try and match up to TikTok in the years to come.
I hope so. I'll do my best.
Radu Jude, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you. Thank you.